Let's talk about how you went from there to getting cast on Laguna Beach.
So again, I was in Utah when the show started, Laguna Beach, when it came to fruition. And I'll never forget, I ended up getting a call, by a buddy or whoever it was, just being like, you won't believe what's going on. They're doing a show in Laguna Beach. They're doing a spinoff from the show, The OC, but they're doing like a soft scripted reality show. And I was like, no way. Like, okay, like what a trip. Didn't really think anything of it. They shot the first season. It did well. And when I
Did you
came
watch
back,
it?
I think I like tried watching like the first or second episode and I never really got into it. And it was, just had there, it was, having your friends and stuff on. It was because back then that was, you only had cable television. You didn't have YouTube, you didn't have Netflix, you didn't have all these other things. So obviously it was like, part of me was like, oh, this show's so, like, it's lame, but it was also like, okay, it's pretty cool that that they're doing this here. And MTV back then it was legit. So, um, but after it came out, they were doing a second season. They asked some of the cast, like, "Hey, who should we bring back?" Because some of the singers that were on there, they're gone now. So who would be good to interview? And so my name got brought up multiple times. And again, just given the current state, obviously, when I went to wilderness program and I went to boarding school, it only had such a
You had
only
some
had
flavor to you.
it didn't have too much of a healing process to it. So when I came back, I was still, active in a lot of the behaviors and stuff that I was in. So when they interviewed me, it was literally, I'll never forget, went to the rooftop in Laguna Beach and did the interview, and the rest is history. They ended up casting me pretty quickly.
Who did you know on the current cast before that had recommended you?
Kristen Cavallari, Talon, Torriero. I knew Steven and Dieter. So I knew like half of the cast. I mean, we knew like Laguna Beach was a very, very small school. So, I mean, we knew everybody, but there was some of the people on there were our, like close friends. So, um, yeah, that was who recommended.
Okay, so now what age were you when this started?
17.
Wow. So you were in boarding school and you came home for it, or you were already home?
No, I was already home. So I was at boarding school, came back, the show was out, and then they got the news pretty quickly that they wanted to shoot a second season, and then I was brought on.
Okay, so tell me what that's like to be 17 years old and all of a sudden you're part of this hit TV show. Like you're growing up kind of on TV.
It was bizarre. I mean, I'll never forget. I mean, my life changed overnight. I literally is when the commercials started coming out and the promos, and back in the movie theaters, like when you go to movies, they'd literally run like trailers for it and stuff. And I remember going down to the gas station like after it started coming out, and my car like got bombarded with people, and I was like, what the hell? Like, just didn't know what to expect. And I was like, okay, like this, like, I can get used to this, And so, I mean, you take somebody who's got an overinflated ego with an underestimated sense of self worth, that
Yeah.
really pours some fuel to the fire on it. And it was a trip, looking at how, because it was just like, it literally, our whole life changed overnight.
Mhm.
It wasn't like this drawn out process. And the show had such a following, and it was so successful, which it was crazy.
Well, and it was one of those the first reality shows kind of that really stuck out, made it people were obsessed with it, right? And so I think that's really interesting that, you got to be a part of it. Now there's so much talk about if characters were created, if it wasn't really reality. Like what was your experience when you were on it? Did you feel like you were just living life and they were getting it on film, or did you feel like you had to create a character?
It's so funny because everybody, like, I mean, after doing like Kristen and Steven's Back to the Beach show, and like everybody really had a different experience. And so, like, there was a lot of stage stuff for some people, some it wasn't. For me, it's like, I feel like they had to get whatever they could because I was so hit or miss. Like, I mean, I'd literally be hammered half the time. And so it's like, they would just try to capture what they could. I mean, there was like scenes that we'd have to reshoot here and there, but
Mm.
overall, I mean, for me on Laguna specifically, I mean, it was pretty true to what you got. I mean, I'd say maybe 10% of it was, there was edits and different things like that. But some of the other cast, I mean, they had like half their stuff was reshot or scripted, and so it was different for each. But the Hills, it started to get more scripted, and scenarios and just different things that they would set up were became more and more scripted.
Is it weird to look back and watch some of those episodes? Do you ever watch those episodes, by the way?
I had not I had not watched an episode for, I can't believe it was like 15 years probably.
Mhm.
And then Netflix picked up the series just like within the last year. And my mother-in-law and my wife like were like, "Oh my god, like the show's it's on here. Let's watch an episode." And they turned it on, and we ended up watching it, and it was brutal. I mean, I can't
Why?
believe. I just want. To be honest with you, I can't believe that. I mean, the show seemed like kind of boring and lame to me. I can't believe that it was the phenomenon that it was, and just it was definitely something that I wouldn't, I could care less to watch. But it was also just kind of seeing, the state of mind mentally, emotionally, and physically that I was in. I mean, after, looking back, I can see how much I was really struggling and
Yeah.
how unaware and how unattuned to it I was. I mean, it was very apparent that I was, struggling with alcoholism and just lost individual.
Well, that was my next question. Like, what was it like to look back and see who you were? Did you not even recognize that person, or were you like, yeah, I know that guy?
Yeah. I mean, I think both. I did not realize how sick I was,
Mm,
because when you're active in it, it's a disease of denial, and you don't want to take ownership or accountability for a lot of the things that you do. And I was aware of some of the things that I was walking through, but to be able to physically see it, which is interesting, having your senior year documented, or just that time in your life. I mean, there's you're it's crazy because your parents, like my parents at least, it's like I had my childhood and my early teens documented, whether it was for sports, different things, but kind of after 13 or 14, most people didn't have that, and it's something that we had that we could look back, which was crazy. So but seeing it, yeah, it was hard. It was almost kind of hard to watch,
yeah.
seeing kind of the state that I was in. And um, because there was so many opportunities to really get appropriate help and direction and stuff, but something I didn't grasp onto, which again, everything happens for a reason. And so, but it definitely, it was definitely challenging to see some of those scenes.